Answered in Kind, 29. On discernment, imagination, and the gentle mastery of being human. Be mindful of what you solidify. For the moment imagination forgets that it is imagination, it ceases to serve and begins to govern. What was once a tool becomes a tyrant. What was once fluid becomes law, and law, when mistaken for reality itself, no longer guides, it constrains. Human suffering does not begin in malice. It begins in congealment. The psyche is a myth-making organ. The mind, a ceaseless mythographer. From sensation, it spins narrative. From fear, it fashions form. From ambiguity, it constructs gods, devils, enemies, and destinies. This capacity is not a flaw. It is the engine of culture, art, religion, science, and meaning itself. But it is also the source of our most enduring prisons when left unexamined. Imagination, untended, does not rest. It populates. And when no guidance is given, when discernment is absent, it will fabricate phantoms from absence itself, then recoil from them in terror, never realizing they were homemade. Thus, humanity learns to be haunted by its own unacknowledged authorship. There exists a quiet center, often overlooked because it lacks spectacle. Not the rigidity of suppression, nor the chaos of indulgence, but regulation, calibration, attunement. Call it the happy middle, the healthy balance. You possess the power to make your road jagged or to let it remain smooth. Not because life lacks obstacles, but because perception determines collision. Ignore your feelings, and the road grows treacherous. Worship them uncritically, and the road becomes impassable. But read them as signals, informational emissaries from the nervous system, and the path begins to reveal its curvature before the bend. Feelings are not dictators, nor are they liabilities. They are telemetry. You cannot avoid the boulder by denying its existence, nor can you remove it by screaming at the road. But you can steer subtly, wisely, if you allow sensation to inform orientation rather than override it. This, too, is mastery, quiet mastery, the kind that leaves no scorch marks. The human mind is not pessimistic by accident. It is vigilant by inheritance. Negativity bias is the evolutionary residue of survival in hostile terrains. The thorn was remembered longer than the blossom because forgetting it once meant extinction. The nervous system learned to prioritize threat detection over wonder. Pain became high resolution, joy compressed. What once preserved the species now constricts the soul. The modern human walks through gardens with a predator scanner installed, cataloging micro-threats while overlooking entire constellations of grace. This is not moral failure. It is mechanical inertia, and mechanisms can be retrained, not through force, never through shame, but through repetition of safety, through conscious reorientation, through small steps taken consistently. You cannot take every step at once. You only have 2 feet. But step by step, over time, you will travel farther than you ever imagined when you were still standing still, convincing yourself that movement required perfection. Sometimes asking is the first step, not because you are weak, but because you are finished pretending you already know. To lie is not merely to state an untruth. It is to abandon reality for the sake of temporary shelter. And no shelter built of illusion withstands weather. Every lie requires maintenance, memory, justification, reinforcement. A lie is not static. It accumulates mass. Each evasion adds weight until the structure collapses, not from cruelty, but from mathematics. Truth, by contrast, is self-sustaining. It requires no rehearsal, no vigilance, no scaffolding. Truth has a particular fragrance, open, breathable, unforced. You cannot knock on its walls because it has none. It is nothing but presence. Lies are cold, hollow. You knock and hear the echo of your own anxiety. Avoidance hides in shadow, pretending invisibility grants immunity. And yet, truth does not demand exposure. There is a difference between being honest and being indiscriminate. Discernment does not require confession to those who would weaponize what they cannot hold. Silence can be integrity when it refuses to circulate distortion. The discipline is not disclosure, it is non-duplication. Do not repeat what is false, not outwardly, not inwardly, not even as a joke you secretly believe. Coercion is not a fruit of faith. It is a confession of its absence. Truth does not need force. Faith does not require enforcement. The moment pressure appears, social, psychological, moral certainty has already fractured. Authority compensates where trust has failed. This applies to religion, ideology, relationships, and identity alike. When belief is alive, it invites. When belief is dead, it demands. And the demand always masks fear. Fear of ambiguity, fear of responsibility, fear of standing naked before a reality that requires participation rather than obedience. Consider how easily symbol hardens into monster. What we now call Satan, The devil, or Lucifer, did not originate as a singular cosmic villain lurking behind every shadow. Historically, these figures evolved, accreting meaning through political conflict, sectarian boundary drawing, and psychological projection. What began as metaphor, literary device, or personification of opposition gradually ossified into ontological terror. This is not revelation, it is sedimentation. And herein lies the warning. When imagination forgets it is imagination, it claims sovereignty. Human beings then blame external villains for internal fragmentation. They outsource shadow. They exile responsibility. They wage war against phantoms they themselves altered, then wonder why peace never arrives. Knowledge, in this sense, is not corrosive to faith, it is protective of it. Discernment is not betrayal, it is maturation. To declare that a sacred text is entirely false is as reductive as insisting it is entirely literal. Both positions evade interpretation. Both collapse nuance into allegiance. Even Scripture warns against rigid literalism. Yet many cling to it, not in pursuit of truth, but in fear of exclusion. Belonging is purchased at the cost of inquiry. Certainty substitutes for courage. The tragedy is not belief, it is belief without literacy. A text can be symbolically true without being historically precise. Myth can convey psychological truth without functioning as journalism. To confuse the layers is not devotion, it is category error. Control does not persist by inserting false beliefs. It persists by punishing awareness of how beliefs form. The most dangerous question to any coercive system is not, is this true, but how did this come to feel inevitable? When people are never taught how thoughts arise, how emotions amplify, how identities crystallize, they become prisoners of their own interior machinery. They defend fear as if it were virtue, confusion as if it were loyalty. Some will fight desperately to preserve their ignorance, not because they are evil, but because their entire sense of safety is built upon it. Observe how fragile identities react to boundaries. Say, I respect men who respect women. A grounded self hears standards. A fractured self hears annihilation. The response is not dialogue, but a shriek, a reflexive defense of a prosthetic identity stitched together to cover shame. Organic identity does not require constant defense. Artificial identity does. Projection is the immune response of the unexamined ego. Some individuals say, sometimes the most anointed thing you can do is stop talking not from avoidance, but from stewardship. In an age of infinite expression, silence becomes a form of discernment. Precision replaces volume. Wisdom learns when not to inflate a half-formed insight into a doctrine that others will misuse. A wise person is not mute, but measured. Humanity has not been taught how to be wrong safely. For many, being wrong equals humiliation, exile, annihilation. So they cling to error with religious ferocity. Growth feels like death because no one taught them how to revise without collapse. Until people learn how to update beliefs without shame, how to change without self-betrayal, how to disentangle identity from opinion, they will continue to mistake rigidity for strength. When dishonesty is dropped, not just outward lies, but the subtle ones whispered inwardly, vision clarifies. Reality no longer needs to be argued with. Cooperation replaces combat. Inner authority returns. And only then can one see dishonesty in another without contempt, recognizing it not as evil, but as fear still masquerading as protection. Benediction. So may you remember the authorship you were never meant to surrender. So may you steward imagination without letting it enthrone itself. May your feelings become instruments, not rulers. May your beliefs remain permeable to light. May you walk the middle path, not dull, not dramatic, but alive. May you ask before you harden. May you listen before you condemn. May you pause before you proclaim. And when you encountered the unknown, may curiosity outrun fear, discernment outpace projection, and wisdom soften certainty into wonder. May truth feel warm in your body. May silence teach you when speech would bruise. May knowledge free you without stripping you of awe. And may you end each day a little less haunted by what was never real to begin with, and a little more illuminated by the quiet, indestructible light that never needed defense. Praise love and pass the compassion. The light speaks once and forever.